And social media giants cracking down tonight, taking new action after the siege at the U.S. Capitol. Good evening, I'm Elizabeth Cook.
I'm Alan Martin. Today, Facebook announced it will remove any content that mentions the phrase "stop the steal." The term quickly became a rallying cry for Trump supporters following the election. It was also used by those involved in Wednesday's violence in Washington, D.C. The move comes a full 69 days after Election Day.
Parler, the alternative social media platform favored by conservatives, is suing Amazon. The lawsuit is in response after Amazon cut off the platform from its services. Parler accusing Amazon of breaking antitrust laws, breaching its contract, and interfering with the company's business relationships with its users.
And Twitter's stock fell as much as 12% today after the social media giant permanently suspended the president's account. The drop wiped $5 billion from Twitter's market value. Certainly debate over freedom of speech is intensifying after the big tech companies banned some of those accounts. So what do the moves mean when it comes to First Amendment rights? Reporter Jeff Nguyen takes a closer look.
Following last Wednesday's deadly siege on Capitol Hill, in which a mob was incited by President Trump, Twitter ended a 12-year run by cutting the president off from his nearly 89 million followers. Facebook and Instagram suspended his accounts at least until Inauguration Day. Sheryl Sandberg is the social media giant's chief operating officer.
You know, most of the rules that govern the internet were written 25 years ago. And we've been very public in not just saying we'll participate in legislation, but we're calling for regulation. We do think the internet needs new regulation.
Sandberg says groups like QAnon, Proud Boys, and Stop the Steal had already been banned for trying to organize violent protests. Loyola law professor Justin Levitt specializes in constitutional law. He once served at the U.S. Department of Justice.
This is something of a debate about free speech versus free enterprise, but the speech that we get from the big social media companies is privately facilitated. It's a company deciding what it wants you to do.
Early this morning, the app Parler, which has allowed conspiracy theories to go unchecked, went offline after Amazon said it would no longer host the site on its computing services. Apple and Google removed Parler from its app stores this weekend. Professor Levitt says social media platforms have conduct rules that users must agree to when they sign on. That doesn't mean their constitutional rights are being violated.
The First Amendment stops, for example, the government from banning your speech, from fining you because of speech, from putting you in jail because of speech. It doesn't force a private company to carry your speech.
The American Civil Liberties Union says it understands the desire to permanently suspend Trump for undermining the election, and in a statement that says in part, President Trump can turn to his press team or Fox News to communicate with the public. But others, like many Black, brown, and LGBTQ activists who have been censored by social media companies, will not have that luxury.
Well, CNET's editor-at-large Ian Sherr joins us now. Ian, we have Facebook taking more action today, bracing for the possibility of even more violence ahead of the inauguration. What about the long term, though? How difficult will it be for these sites to police this kind of content moving forward?
It's near impossible, and that's part of one of the biggest problems that they're facing, is that there are 2.7+ billion people using Facebook every month. There are 1+ billion people using Instagram every month. I mean, there's no army on earth that large. And so the reality is that they rely on you and me to alert them about bad stuff, and then they try to figure out with their tens of thousands of employees to figure out whether it violates their rules. And that model just isn't working. You know, at the end of the day, a lot of these people just answer to Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, who gets to decide on his own whim whether he wants something to be there or not. Same thing with Jack Dorsey of Twitter. And I've argued on CNET that that needs to change. We can't have one person running it and trying to figure out the whole internet on his own. It just doesn't work.
Right. Do you see a shift in how these companies are held liable? Do you see Congress getting involved?
It definitely, there is a rallying cry in Congress and around the world to start holding tech companies accountable. When it comes to the United States, you've heard a lot about Section 230. That's part of the Communications Decency Act of 1996. We have a little explainer on CNET, of course. And essentially, both sides of the aisle want something to be done to effectively use it to force companies to behave better. Now, everyone disagrees on how they should behave, but there is definitely an increasing interest in doing something, and hopefully it'll be something good.
Ian, Twitter's stock dropped after it banned Trump. What does that say about the price these companies could pay for taking action like it did?
I'm really curious to see how it ends up playing out. You know, when a lot of big moments happen in company histories, I think of when Steve Jobs stepped down as CEO of Apple before he passed away, or even changing of the guards of CEOs sometimes. Sometimes the stock moves a lot, sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it just kind of moves back to zero. And I think that Twitter definitely got a little bit of a pressure back from some of their investors, but I really wonder whether the two are connected and whether or not by the end of the month or the end of the year, this will be a blip or not. You know, it really seems like, okay, maybe President Trump represents 7% of their market value, but I don't know.
Yeah, speaking of that market value, what do you see happening next for Parler?
That'll be really fascinating. Essentially, almost every major tech provider has lined up against them. By the way, even their lawyers have stopped representing them. They're in a tough spot. And I think it underscores how the tech companies are really starting to come to grips with what people like me have been shouting about for years, that this stuff that's happening on the internet, it's not just people mouthing off. It is dangerous. And these companies, I think, are starting to realize that, you know, this is becoming an issue that is turning into helping domestic terrorism to rise. And they don't want a part of it.
Right. Complacency has consequences.
It does.
All right, Ian Scher, thank you so much for joining us.